Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, Todd Helms here with another episode of the Wingmen podcast. And this evening, I have Brennan Schuette on. I say that last name right, Brennan?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. Cool. Brennan and I have some mutual acquaintances. You guys have heard the podcast I did with Noah Miller, so we know Noah. Brennan and I have never actually hooked up when he's been out here and hunted together, but the last couple of years you've come out, Brennan, and it seems like I've always got something else going on and don't get a chance to get out and hunt with you, but you got to hunt one of my blinds this year. I think the last couple of years you guys have done that. That was a good one?
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
Cool, yeah. That blind was pretty good on and off this year. That was we really managed that spot. We tried not to shoot it out. Towards the end of the season, it got a little bit rugged in there, but it wasn't too bad. But you've been coming out here for a couple of years. Why don't you tell us how you got hooked up coming to Wyoming all the way from Minnesota?
So I'm hooked up with DOA and Beavertail, DOA Decoys, Beavertail products. And so I was a flyway manager for the Mississippi Flyway, and Nick Kafkas, he was on the staff. And I put him on the staff, and him and I were chatting, and he wanted to do a staff hunt. And I was all about that, obviously. I mean, once in a lifetime to come out to Wyoming to shoot ducks and geese, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we got to talking, and we ended up, I think there was 8 staffers that came out, and then we brought Noah out there. And so my first year personally in Wyoming was super special because I was going to propose to my now wife out there.
Right.
And,
I remember that hitting social. I remember Nick telling me about that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there for it, but how'd that work out?
Oh, I mean, it worked out. She said yes. So I mean,
that would have been awkward all the way to Wyoming. She's like, I don't know.
Well, and the best part about it all, the first day we field hunted, and Nick kind of took me aside or whatever, and he's just like, "Are you doing it today?" And I was like, "No." I'm like, "It's our first day here. We're just getting settled in." And the second day it was down on the river, and so basically what I did, she likes to find agates. She's a rock hound. I mean, she'll go up and down her driveway 15 times in the summer, and she's looking for agates.
That's funny.
And so, we're in a different part of the country, and I'm like, hey, so we're shooting ducks and, whatever. And it kind of a little bit of that lull, and I'm like, hey, let's go for a walk, warm up, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we'll find some rocks. And we were walking along, and I was like, oh, look at that one. And she's like, well, what, and I, basically I turned, I had her kind of turn around, and I got down on one knee. And meanwhile, I couldn't get the ring box out of my Sitka jacket, and so I'm sitting there pulling on the Velcro, and it was not coming out. And if you ask Nick to this day, him and my buddy Ryan Berg, I think Ryan has video of it on his phone where I'm trying to get the ring out, and you can just hear me almost rip the pocket on my Sitka jacket.
I bet.
So yeah,
oh,
I mean,
that
first year was, super special. It was just fantastic hunting, and that's how Noah got introduced to Nick.
Yeah.
Yep. And I knew Noah, let's see, it would have been 2 years prior to that. He was working out at the Watson hunting camp. So that's where Noah and I started our little friendship. Was I was going out there and hunting, helping out with Chuck, doing all that kind of stuff. And, so that's where me and Noah, pretty much hit it off. The first year, actually it was the first week he was in Minnesota, he was at Game Fair. And I was actually staying in one of Chuck's rooms, and he's like, hey, here's my new guide, whatever. His name's Noah. He's from Utah. And I was like, all right, cool.
Right.
And still to this day, I'm like, me and Noah, we're pretty good buddies. So, but yeah, that first year out there was pretty special. The second year when Noah took over, I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, the hunting ducks and geese in Wyoming is just something that everybody should have on their bucket list.
Keep that on the DL, brother. Let
Right.
me tell you. No, it sucks out here. It's no good at all.
Right. Terrible.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, I grew up in the Midwest too, and the upper Midwest, and when seasons are locking down in November and December, and you're pretty much wrapped up, and there's nothing else to do except ice fish for a really long winter.
Right.
You know, these western states, whether it's Montana or Wyoming or Colorado or you know, even Nebraska, parts of Nebraska anyway, man, they can be good late,
Oh, yeah.
you know, because of the way things are, as you got to experience. The birds center up on the rivers,
Yep.
and it can be, well, like it's the last week until today, I don't think we've seen temps above 5 or 6 degrees below zero in like 2 weeks.
Right.
You know, and those are daytime highs. So I mean, it's getting down at night 20 below and colder in places, and the river's still flowing, and there's
Right.
still birds. I actually had to make a run south of where we are about a couple hours, and just, you know, seasons are closed obviously, but I'm like, you know, we lost all our birds with that cold snap. It pushed them. They got up and they left.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, maybe we'll get some more in time for the end of late goose. No, nothing showed up. I mean, a few birds here, a few birds there, but nothing really, no good concentrations to hunt. Anyway, I went down a couple hours south. Well, found them. They all ended up down there, and which is not a big surprise. That the spot I was at was pretty traditional late season hot spot when it gets real cold. But man, that place was loaded. I mean, literally thousands and thousands of ducks and geese, and it was pretty cool. But it's unique, as you know. It's, you know, the rivers are fast. They're dangerous for dogs. They can be dangerous to hunt around.
Yeah.
We get I mean, you got to see it firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, the first time that we hunted the river out there, and you know, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I've hunted, you know, rivers, whatever you want to, you know, around here, but I mean, they're nothing like that out there.
Right.
You know, they're moving. And when that first morning that we hunted with Nick, you know, you get about, you know, 50 yards from the water and you can hear it, and I'm kind of like, whoa. You know, like I don't know about this, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, like, is he really going to send his dog in this, you know? Well, you get out there, it's knee deep or waist deep,
Right.
you know, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, the first barrage that, you know, we shot into, and Nick and I can't think of the guy that was helping him.
I think you had Alan that year.
Yeah, Alan. Yeah. You know, they sent their dogs. I mean, they were just go, and I'm like, you know, whoa, you know, like I didn't know to expect that at all. Oh, I got my dog here. Riker. No. we have a Great Dane.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It sounds like,
oh boy. I'm gonna have
funny.
to.
Yeah, man, take a second.
Yeah. I think I might have to go down in the basement if that's cool.
Yeah, man, no worries.
My wife must be home. Riker, no.
That's funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Zoom calls, man.
I knew that would happen.
Live podcasts.
There we go.
That's just the way it goes. That basement.
Let's see here.
Your basement's a lot nicer than mine.
I remodeled it. When was that? About a year after I moved in. Here, I'm trying to get a little table here set up. There we go. All right.
That'll work.
There we go.
Cool.
No, he won't be screaming in the microphone.
That's funny. Now you were talking about the sending dogs and stuff into the rivers, and It takes a little getting used to, but the biggest thing is you have to pay attention to is Nick. I remember Nick asked me to help Alan the year before you first came out. Alan didn't have a dog yet.
Yep.
And so I was helping out with my dog, and we got to a spot. I looked at Alan and I was like, I'm not sending my dog in here. There's no way. I said, this is a dog killer right here. And I said, the wind, we looked at it and the wind was such that morning that I said, I think you should be able to call most of the shots so the birds fall on land behind the blind.
Right.
And we should be good to go. And it worked out that way. But there was one bird in particular that I sent my dog on. I thought I got lots of room. I can send him. And the current was so strong that it still swept him downstream. He ended up doing like a merry-go-round for like 30 minutes.
Really?
Never set this Drake Mallard down. And Alan, I kept trying to call him upriver to get him to this shallow spot, but he would not come that far up. He kept wanting to fight that current. And Alan ended up having to go downstream and like have a client hang onto his legs, and he snagged the dog as it got sucked past him.
Yeah.
Before it got into the sweepers downriver. And it's dangerous, man. And guys lose dogs all the time out here in these rivers. Ice shelves, log jams,
I believe it.
And I've gotten to the point too where we don't shoot more than 1 or 2 birds out of a group, or 2 or 3 at the most, depending on where you are. There's a couple spots like you can go ahead and hose them because the current's slow enough where you can, with 2 dogs and a couple dudes and waders, you can get all your birds.
Right.
But man, there's other spots. It's like, no, we shoot 2.
Right.
We shoot 2 birds, kill those 2 drakes. That's it. One of which being a spot you guys hunted this year. Unless you got 3 or 4 dogs, that's a tough spot. You lose birds there.
Yeah, that current there, man, that was moving pretty good. We had Noah's dog and then we had Max's dog. Yep. And so we had 2 dogs working, but still, there was 3 shooters, and say we shot, let's just say we shot 4 greenheads out of a group. I mean, they got to go. I mean, and that was kind of, it was kind of cool to watch, but at the same time, you're kind of, like, maybe we shouldn't have shot that bird or shot that last one.
Yeah. And that particular spot's interesting because the middle of the river where the birds usually funnel into is too deep for a guy in waders to wade.
Right.
And you can't, but you can get downstream and you can get across downstream. And the nice thing is the dogs have a lot of room to work. I mean, even if the birds go around the corner, there's no danger to the dogs in there for hundreds and hundreds of yards. So, I mean, I've had my dog in the water way downstream and picking up birds, but yeah, it's different. I mean, it's definitely different. I can't remember why I couldn't go that day with you guys. I think I had a magazine that I was going to print or for
it was something like that.
But I couldn't go. Otherwise, you'd have had a 3rd dog.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that hunt, I mean, man, did we see birds there?
That was a good spot this year. That was a good spot this year.
And
I saw a little bit of it. It looked like you guys just tore them up.
Oh yeah. And the best part, you had a blind there, that was, you show up and we brought our own decoys and stuff down there, but it was nice. You just show up, you have your blind, you're ready to go, set decoys. And I mean, as soon as it got to, you could see, and it was just ducks funneling that river. And then that's still to this day is my favorite type of hunting. And I hope that I can continuously go back out to Wyoming, especially with Noah. I mean, it's just fun,
Yeah, you guys got a spot here anytime you want it, as far as even if, whatever you want to keep coming out and Noah's not here, just call me, man. You can come out and stay and we'll hunt. I mean,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a cool deal. It's one of those things that gets in your blood, I've hunted all over in Wyoming and different parts of Montana, and it's good everywhere you go as long as you're on a major river system.
Right.
And between in the West is funny too. It's not like where you are, where there's ag everywhere.
Right.
The only place out here there's ag is in the rivers, or is along river bottoms, because they got to have water.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's the biggest thing, that to me, that's another reason why I like going out there. It really concentrates the birds.
Right.
You can run, in just in a certain section, and that there's going to be birds there, but versus like around home, we might have, let's just say in a 60-mile radius, we might have 15, 20 different roosts to check.
Right. Right.
And we have so much, like you're saying, we have so much agriculture around here. You don't know where they're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We put a lot of miles on our trucks driving around out here.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's nice because it concentrates the birds, but it concentrates the hunting pressure too.
Right.
And it's interesting. It doesn't take a lot of guys hunting the same area to make birds stale in a hurry.
Yeah. Or to just push them out even.
Yeah. Or they go nocturnal, and that's the problem we had this year is I don't think I did a single field hunt, dry land hunt this year. Nope. Every time I got a field, I'm like, okay, the geese, we just never had a big concentration of geese that I felt like it was trying to make hay while the sun shined with the ducks. And then by the time I got around to really getting after the honkers, there was one field and the geese were super stale. And I watched them come in the morning and they wouldn't land next to each other.
Right.
They'd come in and they'd land 100 yards apart and then walk and feed. And even when they were feeding, they weren't in big groups. They were all in little family groups. And I'm like, man, I don't even know if you could decoy those birds.
Right.
And then about that time, somebody else got permission to hunt the field and they hunted it, and they didn't really kill anything. They killed a few birds, but they didn't do very well.
Yeah.
And the birds kind of quit using it for a couple days. And I hunted them on the river in, traffic birds up and down the river a couple times. And then then we got these sub-zero temps and all this snow, and they left.
Well, see, like that's what we battled, all year long was such mild temps. The beginning of the year or beginning of our duck season, so let's just say October-ish, it would have been middle October. I mean, we had 7 inches of snow just out of the blue, and we didn't have any of our northern birds showing up yet. I went up to my in-laws' place up by Fergus, and we shot divers and stuff up there. It was incredible. The birds were just starting to push down, but so we had that first, that snowstorm. I wish we would have gotten mid-November, but we didn't get that. We got it mid-October, and then it just went mild temps for the remainder of the season.
Yep, same thing. We got birds early, and we were, being the editor at Eastmans, there's a lot of responsibility that I have before I can shoot ducks and geese. I've got big game stuff. I think, there you are.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I went down in the basement, my internet connection gets a little funky.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so it was the same thing, man. We had birds early, and the guys that were hunting them were doing really, really well. And then about the time you guys showed up, temperatures were warm. The birds were nocturnal, big time. And that spot you guys got to hunt there, that was one of the few places that birds were actually using the river. A lot of those birds were using water treatment facilities and not coming to the river, and then they'd fly into whatever dry field you had, like a cornfield or whatever. They wouldn't fly in until after shooting hours were over. And I ran into that multiple times, and it was like, man, this is tough. And
we had that happen here too. It was just, it didn't even pay to scout anymore. The temps were, 45, 50 degrees in the evening. If we were to go scout geese, I mean, they were flying out with maybe 1 minute left of shooting light.
Right, exactly.
And that was it.
And I think Noah ended up shortly after you guys were here, he stuck it out for a couple more weeks.
Yep.
And bagged it. Refunded deposits and canceled people. He's like, you don't want to come. You don't want to come. I can't get you on birds. And he's like, I'm going to Arkansas to chase snows, and I think I don't know where he is right now, but I think that's probably where he's playing in the mud.
I think he's down there somewhere, as far as I know, just from what I've seen on Snapchat anyways.
Exactly. Playing in the mud.
Playing. Yeah, well, right now they're playing in snow.
I know it. It's crazy all the way to Texas. I'm like, this is what the rest of us live with all the half of the year. Jeez.
It's funny because so we were on a cattle business here in Minnesota.
Sure.
And we used to sell some Holsteins down to Texas, and it was always kind of a joke between us and the customer. He would always say, we get 2 inches of snow, and he's like, there's people going in the ditch and they don't know how to drive and whatever. I'm like, we get 2 inches of snow up here, we're like, man, it's just another day.
It's Tuesday. Tuesday. Yeah, and what's funny is I kind of teased folks out here in Wyoming the same thing, because in the part of Wyoming that I live in, it's pretty mild here. I mean, you've been out here, and we get some cold temps, we get some snow, but man, not like they do in other parts of the state.
Right.
And winters out here, compared to where I grew up, are like tropical. It's warm. There's no snow. I see guys moving snow with leaf blowers, and I'm like, what's that about? But
right.
Yeah, other parts. You get down in that I-80 corridor in southern Wyoming, and it's brutal down there. But you're driving over the ceiling of the continent down there. I mean, that's a continental divide.
Right.
8,000 feet. It's like that's winter.
You're right.
Also, not a lot of birds hang out down there year round either. So.
I can imagine not.
No, that place that's an ice box down there. But
yeah.
So, how was your fall in Minnesota? Overall,
let's say the field hunting was not very good this year. We had some good early season honker shoots. We had, the one thing this year, we had some very good migrator days in the early season, which was wonderful. That's just a godsend down here. But one thing that I noticed especially was the amount of hunting pressure this year.
Really?
And I think it had part to do with COVID. People weren't able to do anything. So everybody was buying a duck boat, which to me, that's great.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, you'd show up to a lake to go shoot divers, and, you'd see always the same 1 or 2 different boats there.
Right.
There'd be a dozen trucks in the parking lot. Yeah. And it was like, it just really threw me for a loop, but at the same time, it's like, it's good to see people out hunting, and the field hunting, that too, I'm a local farm kid, I know every farmer around here, and I can always just, grab a phone number and, give old Bruce a call, and he's like, go ahead.
Right.
And I had it so many times this year, I talked to just, a local friend of ours, and he'll be like, I had like 9 people call me on my cornfield this year. And it's like what?
Wow.
And I'm like, well, where were some of these people from? Some guys were coming from like hour and a half away, and I just assumed that it had to do with, COVID and not a lot of anything else for people to do, so everybody's all duck hunting,
I think you're right. I know that tag sales, big game tag sales for the state of Wyoming was through the roof this year, and all the western states had that happen. Normally a lot of our doe fawn tags or cow calf tags, our antlerless tags there's leftovers, and you can buy them over the counter type deal. And this year they were all gone. I mean, this is the only year since I've lived in Wyoming, which is 12 years now, that I've been putting in for antlerless tags, different species, and not gotten everything I applied for.
Really?
Whether it's antelope or whether it's deer, whitetails
Yeah.
or elk. I got my cow elk tag, but I got blanked, and my wife and I both got blanked on our whitetail doe fawn tags and our antelope doe fawn tags. That never happens.
Really?
Ever. Not ever. And I was really surprised. And then out in the field, you'd see all kinds of out-of-state plates we see a lot of out-of-state plates anyway.
Yeah.
But in these late like cow elk seasons, it's mostly residents. Not a lot of guys are going to travel to shoot a cow elk.
Right.
And there were plates from all over, from your neck of the woods, from Pennsylvania, New York. And everybody that I talked to out here said the same thing. It was the mountains all summer. The mountains were full of people.
Yeah.
You'd go fishing or go camping. You couldn't find a spot to camp, whether it was in a campground or otherwise. All your fishing spots were tracked up. People been in there, and it's like, man, this is wild. I'd never see anybody in here. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
It was every corner, I think, of every recreational state got pounded. And I think you're right. I think it was COVID related. This has changed everything. People they're working from home.
Right. It's pushed people to get back into the outdoors, which is awesome.
Yes.
And it gets people, back out and doing those types of things. But at the same time, it's putting pressure on certain areas where you've never seen that before.
Right. Right.
And like what I was saying before, like our field hunting was, it had to do with the weather. I mean, we had mild temps, field hunting was just not good. But for me this year, I mean, I had a great diver hunting season. Luckily, my in-laws are up north, about 2.5 hours north of me.
Where are they?
Just south of Fergus.
Okay.
Yep.
You said that. Sorry.
Yep. And, we had some fantastic, multi-species diver shoots up there.
Those
and,
are fun.
And that right there, I mean, saved my season, but it's kind of one of those things, you either focus on field hunting when it's good, or you focus on divers when the field hunting isn't good. This year I did a ton of diver hunting, and it was fantastic. I mean, the one day we shot bluebills, we shot redheads, we shot cans, buffleheads, we had golden eyes, we had some shovelers mixed in. I mean, just a whole plethora of everything,
Those are rare days, man.
Oh,
that is cool.
And then on top of it, we shot our bonus hooded mergansers too yet.
Oh, wow. I think I've killed one hoodie in my life.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you look at them and go, oh, it's a merganser. And then by the time you see it's a hooded one, you're like, oh, yeah, it's a little one. And
I'll tell you what, if you ever want to come to Minnesota, I'll get you on one heck of a hooded merganser hunt.
Yeah, it's funny because guys come out here and want to shoot golden eyes, whether commons or barrows, and
that's me.
Yeah, I know. You guys eat it up. And I think it's funny because when I first moved here, it was kind of like everybody wants to shoot mallards, and there's basically 4 main species of ducks that you see a lot of in this part of the country, and it's obviously mallards, lots of golden eyes, whether they're barrows or commons. We shoot quite a few widgeon on different systems, gadwalls, and then I said so 5. We actually have quite a few green wing teal that stay throughout the winter here.
Okay.
You think, wow, winter, but yeah, they're here. I mean, I was down at the river the other day, and it's 15 degrees below zero, and there's teal flitting around.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's open water, they stay. And so those little green wingers are tough. They're tough, man.
Yeah. Yeah, they're tough. They're tough little buggers.
They are, and it's really cool because we get to shoot some really nicely plumaged green wing drakes, man, and I think they're one of the prettiest birds going.
Oh yeah,
but
they're fun to shoot. When we used to go to North Dakota late season, and we get on a field just chock full of mallards, and then it seemed like if it was a wet year, then you would have these 30-40 packs of green wingers just whipping over the spinners, And that still is some of the funnest shooting you will
Yeah.
ever have.
Yep.
You know, and especially in a field, you know, you're sitting in a layout blind and they come in going 75 miles an hour and everybody unloads and you kill like 4, you know?
Yeah. And it never failed for us. We were always shooting like goose loads, you know, 3
Right.
or 3.5 inch BBs, and the
Yeah.
teals show up, and you're like lucky if you get a pellet into them, you know.
Right. Or if you
Yeah.
center up on one, then it's, ooh, that,
Oh yeah,
that one's
smoke
not going
that
to taste
one.
good.
Yeah, no. Oh man. Yeah, it's interesting though, the different parts of the country, what everybody shoots and what everybody gets, and you know, I haven't seen a wood duck. Occasionally guys will kill woodies out here, but it's pretty rare. They kill a few over in Utah.
Yep.
You get in the Pacific Flyway a little bit on the west side of the state, they'll kill some wood ducks. But this part of the Central Flyway, we just don't see them. You know, occasionally. But
We got a lot of wood ducks around here.
man, I remember growing up, there were beaver ponds that we'd hunt up north where I grew up, and the limit was 2 wood ducks at that time in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. You could shoot 2 wood ducks at that time, and we'd be hunting beaver ponds with 500 to 1,000 woodies on them, and you'd shoot your 2 Drake wood ducks, and then honestly, most of the time we just went home,
Right?
Because that was the only ducks that were on that pond. You might hang out and shoot a black duck, you know, occasionally, or mallard, but otherwise it was all woodies.
Yeah.
All
And
woodies.
see, that's what we see a ton of around here on our creeks and small river systems.
Right.
You know, I mean, just right by my house, it's only a quarter mile away. We have the Buffalo Creek, and you'll go there about, let's just say 3 weeks after duck opener here in Minnesota, and you get that first little cold snap to push those wood ducks down. There'll be 700-800 wood ducks on that creek system.
That's fun.
You know,
Mississippi Valley, what are you guys up to? 3 now?
Yeah, we can shoot 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And still, you know, if you can get on them and if you can figure out where they're actually feeding on that little river system or creek, it is wild.
Yes.
You know, because they will come screaming through the trees and you don't know where they're coming. You know, you'll be able to hear a hen off in the distance, should be squealing.
Right.
And you're just, you know, you got your head on a swivel. You don't know which way they're going to come in from. And all of a sudden you just hear a splash and they're in the decoys already.
I know. They don't circle. They don't do anything. They're just kamikaze, man. Do you guys get them in your cornfields at all? Get them on dry line hunts? That is crazy. There is much fun or more than those teal, because they do the same thing in a cornfield. They don't circle.
No.
They just pick a line and boom, they're there.
They see a spinner and it's just they're there. Yeah.
I know.
There's no circling like fox and mallards do.
No, they're super naive.
The thing with hunting wood ducks though in dry fields, you know, you have to have a cloudy morning or a rainy morning or whatever.
Yep.
If it's sunny, you might as well not even go if that's all that's in there is wood ducks, because they'll come 25 minutes before shooting time.
Yeah.
You know,
they have some of the best, I think they have some of the best night vision of any bird, you know, any duck species out there. Because I remember go ahead.
I was gonna say, have you ever watched them feed in a field?
Yeah.
They just go 300 miles an hour. And they just run and pick, and they just take a line down the corn row, and they just are go, and they feed for what, maybe 5 minutes.
Yep. And then they get up and go back to water,
and they're gone.
That's the thing. It's every now and then we would stumble on them, and it was always the same thing. It was like so rare to find them in a cornfield, and they are in and out so quick that you had to just be at the right spot at the right time. You know, it's not like mallards where they'll sit out there all day in the right weather. Yeah. And just kind of loaf and eat, and they'll eat until they're just puking stuff up, you know. And woodies, like you said, everything they do is full speed. Yeah. and they have one gear, and I miss them. I miss them so much, because we just don't see them hardly at all. You'll see them in the summer a little bit, early season. One thing that we have out here that's kind of discouraging is we have, you know, a lot of our real good duck hunting isn't until everything north of us gets froze up and pushes birds in. So it's pretty much a November, December, January game, the end of the season. And that's when the bulk of our season hits, and it's good. But Wyoming opens us really early, way earlier than we need to be open, in my opinion. And so we end up getting what's called our first split. And I think it's like 2 weeks, and they open it like the end of September, first part of October.
Yeah.
And I wish they would open us like September 1st through like the 10th.
Really?
Yes. If you're going to give us an early season, open us that like Labor Day weekend, because we always get a push of teal.
Yep.
Always get a push of teal in like around Labor Day weekend, and that's always blue wingers and cinnamons.
Really?
And they are gone for the most part by the time our season opens. There'll be some around, but for the most part, they are gone. And they show up,
Really?
they're here for about a week, and then they're gone. And I mean, like I said, somebody's going to be like, that's bull crap. I was in such and such a place and shot them up. It's like, well, good for you. But in my experience, what I've seen, they don't stay very long.
Sure.
And because usually middle of September, we get weather, and it shoves them on along, you know. Nighttime temps get cold, whatever. But I would kill if they would give us like, I don't know, 2 weekends.
Yep.
And first
Just a
first
quick,
2
like,
weekends
10-day
of September.
teal season or
Yeah,
something.
man. Real quick, short, and then close us until like November 1st.
Sure.
And run us later into January.
Yeah.
Like to the end of the month. So like some of the southern states have, because we've got the time window. I think we get like 90 days.
Yeah.
And it would be nice, because so often our birds don't show up until the last week of season or even after. You know, if you'd have gone out to shoot ducks before all this weather came, with like last weekend to shoot lake geese, oh my gosh. I mean, there were ducks everywhere. It was unreal, but we're working on it. You work on it. You know,
that's kind of the same situation too in Minnesota. You know, we have, it seems like every year they're opening our duck opener up. To me, it's just too early.
Sure.
And what the DNR, what they're trying to accommodate for is just so everybody can go out when it's mild, shoot their teal, shoot their wood ducks that are even colored. Everybody can get their duck weekend opener in. But on the downfall of it, we close early. Our south zone, which is it's where our farm is. That whole southern part of the state is open for an extra 7 days or whatever. But to me, it's like when we cross that highway down there, you're limited because there isn't near as much water for birds to be harbored up on, which, means there won't be as many ducks. And it creates a lot of limitations unless you go hunt the Mississippi, or you go even further south and hunt like down by Fairmont, like that whole area down there.
Yep.
That'll hold birds, but that gets a ton of pressure too. And what I wish the DNR would do, and I've had a discussion with a few other guys about it. I wish they would let us pick our season. Like you go in when you buy your license, instead of, let's just say you wanted to do the traditional duck opener, but then you only run your license for 10 days, and then you'd have like a 2 or 3 week break. Mm-hmm. And then you could extend your own season so that you're only hunting those 60 days. Sure. That would be kind of cool, but how is the DNR going to regulate that?
Oh, can you imagine the enforcement nightmare that would be? Holy smokes. I mean,
they're already running thin the way it is.
Right. It's I think every game and fish department or DNR is the same across the country. They're all spread thin. There's too much area, not enough wardens, not enough officers. So yeah, I can't even imagine guys, I want the last 60 days. I don't want to hunt that early stuff. I want to, that's what I would do. I would pick the last 90 days of the season, and you could have that early stuff, because I'm chasing elk or deer or antelope that time of year. But I love that idea. I love that idea. I just don't know, man.
It would be so hard to have it actually regulated.
Yeah.
That's the problem of it. But
I mean, computer wise, like actually selling those dates, that's simple. But it's the enforcement side of things where guys are like, well, I thought, because you're going to have guys cheating and hunting way past their time. And
yeah,
I think, most guys would honor it. I think most guys would be honest about it. But yeah, there's always that handful of folks that just don't want to follow rules,
Oh yeah.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, and especially like for duck numbers around us, especially in my area, if we have a wet fall, we have ducks. It's like South Dakota.
Yep.
But this year it was bone dry. I mean, granted, we farm, so I was fine with that
because makes harvest easy.
Yeah, and the last 3 years, I mean, they were hell for harvest. But guess what? The duck hunt was fun.
Right. That's a catch-22 right there.
Oh, yeah.
Holy smokes.
I'll put it this way. I mean, we were having rainfall of 6 inches at a crack.
Oh.
And so behind my grandparents' farm, we always call it the 40, and that's just CRP grass that we put in for pheasant hunting and deer hunting and all that. Well, we have the High Island Creek that runs through our property. It was flowing over the banks and it went into the neighbor's cornfield. And the only way I could get to my deer stand was if I drove the 4-wheeler down the line fence, and I had to put chest waders on to walk across our grass.
Whoa.
And there were spots where I actually had to go into the neighbor's field because I couldn't cross. It was that deep. And I would bet the middle of our 40 was probably 15 feet deep with water. It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I got to my deer stand because I knew that the neighbor had corn on the other side of that creek. And I climbed up the deer stand and I looked and I'm like, that is all green and pintails and widgeon.
Yeah.
And teal. And I was like, we got to hunt this.
Yeah, no.
and it's so far back. It's so far back off the grid that nobody could see it, Yeah. And I called him up. Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Just, don't bring 20 guys in there. Nope. I said, I'll probably bring like 6. But then I would say that hunt was the most ducks, multi-species of ducks I've seen in one location ever.
Wow.
But 2 weeks before that, all we had around here was, was teal. That was it.
Right. Yep.
And it's crazy, as soon as we get that flooding and that water here, I don't know how those birds can tell or know, but all of a sudden it's just like overnight they're here.
I think those early birds, especially, I think they ride those mild fronts, and they bring rain, but if you go further north where they're coming from, it may very well be snow,
right.
and it just shoves them. It was the exact same way in the UP. When it rained, you better be hunting because that was when you had birds.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. And it is the exact opposite out here. I hate cloudy days out here.
Yeah.
I hate them. And to get my head wrapped around that paradigm shift was so hard because it's like, no, it's duck weather. Let's go. It's crappy. No, I want it bright sunshine and wind out here. And
sunshine, wind, and mallards. That's just
buddy.
That's the 3.
Yep. And it's crazy when you get those 3 out here and you have birds. It's insane. But yeah, same deal, man. Same deal. I remember tree stand type deal, flooded, kind of a beaver flooding. It was a big acorn year and it was wet, so that pond actually blew up and it was out in the woods, kind of like what they get down south with the flooded timber.
Yep.
And there was acorns everywhere, and there was like a big oak ridge that it butted up against, and it was the same thing. I remember sitting in my tree stand bow hunting, and you couldn't hear. There were so many birds in there. I mean, and mallards and woodies and black ducks, and it was crazy. And same deal. Yeah. Except that was state land. It was public. And it was the middle of nowhere, public ground. And I think we had it to ourselves for about 3 weeks until the birds finally. We were young and dumb and we overshot it, and but whatever.
When the picking's good, I mean, you got to be there. You know?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. What do you got planned for the rest of the year? You going to chase snows or you on to turkeys?
Probably just turkey hunting this year.
Yeah.
I might, if we have time, I might go run out to South Dakota for a weekend or something, chase some snows. But for me, I used to snow goose hunt, and I just kind of burned out,
Yeah.
from it.
Yep.
There's, again, there's so many people doing it. And, you go to South Dakota now, and it's just, you try to find a nice dry pasture to hunt and whatever, you get turned down because, some guy did something a couple of years before and they don't let anybody hunt type situation. And I don't know, I just love killing turkeys.
I hear you there. I hear you there. The snow goose thing's a ball, and we've kind of got some tentative plans, but I'm with you. It's kind of like, I might do some multi-state turkey chasing instead. All of our turkey plans got foibled last year with COVID, so I'd like to make up for it this year, but we'll see.
Yeah. Where do you usually travel to go turkey hunting?
Last year we just stayed right here. We had some local plans in Montana, but kind of depends what we draw. If we draw the limited quota stuff here in Wyoming, it's close to home type stuff. But the general, we're blessed, man. We got general turkey all over the place. So and lots of birds, lots of options. Then you got Montana. Last year we couldn't hunt Montana. We had COVID kind of put the kibosh on that, and then thinking maybe South Dakota this year, maybe Nebraska. Got some feelers out on Texas.
Okay.
We'll see, man. What about you?
Me and my wife, we go out to Western Minnesota, and we'll be out there for a couple days, and then we hop across the border and hunt South Dakota.
Nice.
And so that's kind of like a 2-for-1 trip. So I've been going out to that area of Western Minnesota for, I think this will be my 12th year going out there. And I've got some very, very good ground out there, and, we can just hop right over to South Dakota and hunt, and it makes it just a nice little 2-for-1 trip, and the area that we hunt in South Dakota, we can shoot 2 birds this year, which I'm really excited about.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It used to be that way. And then they just went to one bird tag. And, I've been watching, since they did that, I'm kind of glad they did, because the bird numbers are back.
Yeah.
And I have a buddy that lives out in that area, and he'll send me Snapchats of 400 or 500 in a group turkeys.
Right.
And now I'm like, yeah, I can see, why they're probably trying to do it, and so, yeah, that's my plan as of now. We might hit Montana. Not 100% sure yet. Definitely, I want to go back to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is so much fun, especially the area that we go. We're in like the southern region of Wisconsin. I got a buddy that lives down there, and they run a cow calf operation, and local farm kid, and he knows everybody in the area.
Yep. No, that's so nice when you've got those connections.
Yeah.
It opens up a lot of ground, stuff that if you were to show up and don't knock on doors, you probably get told no,
Right.
and it's the same way. I think it's everywhere you go. If
Right.
you have a local connection that can help you get on birds, man, it
makes a big difference.
Huge, and we're blessed out here because we have a lot of public ground. In South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, we all have lots of public ground with birds on it.
Yeah.
And guys, that's one thing. It's totally different than waterfowl. Is guys, you can spread out to hunt turkeys because there's birds everywhere. Early, if you want to hunt early and hunt those big flocks, which can be, holy smokes, you put out a strutter or a Jake decoy with a hen, dude.
Yeah.
It's you can't hardly keep them off of it, but it's our birds out here by the time breeding comes around, that's all they want to do. And they don't want to fight. You put out even a Jake decoy, they don't want anything to do with it.
Really?
Nope. They will literally, the bird I killed last year here in Wyoming. I don't, everybody wants to call them in, shoot them right in the decoys, obviously 15, 20 yards right in the chops, right? That's the whole goal. Well, but everybody also knows that you take what you can get, especially
Exactly.
on public ground. And
Yeah.
I had a bird come in and we were filming. So it was kind of like, all right, get one killed on camera. And then we can worry about like a story, right?
Yeah.
And so first afternoon, worked this bird, got in on him, worked him for like 2 hours, and he'd come just incrementally closer. Like, I think he's getting closer. And then 30 minutes later, he'd gobble again, and he was, okay, yeah, he's closer, you know. But I ended up, I quit calling and just like scratch the leaves every few minutes.
Yep.
And which is, you don't have to do that hunting Merriams. Normally it's like you just yak, 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 and they come in. And this was like hunting eastern bird. You know, I really had to like go back to my old bag of tricks to get this bird in. He came in and he stepped out of the woods at about, 55 yards, 60 yards. Yeah. He looked at the decoys, and I had a Dave Smith, like half strut Jake with a breeder hen, the breeding pair, I guess you call it. He looked at those, shuffled his feathers, turned and started to walk away. And I went, no, and
bang,
smoked him, you know, and it was longer than what I like to shoot, but he was stone dead. I mean,
yeah,
it just crushed him. Today's turkey loads are ridiculous.
Oh, they're unbelievable.
They're unbelievable. Almost like cheating.
Well, last year I got my first experience hunting Black Hills in South Dakota.
That's a fun hunt.
Yeah. And, the guy who actually married me and my wife, he's got connections out there. And he asked me to come with, and I'm like, I can't turn this opportunity down because they're hunting all private ground out there. And I'm like, I'm in, Well, made the drive, got out there, and we get up to this one property and meet, his buddy and his dad up there, and they call it the wood pile. And so we get up there and we're just, chit chatting, whatever. And we went on one side of the wood pile on the ridge, walked around, called, didn't see nothing. And I'm like, all right, and I'm just enjoying the view,
Yeah.
We get it back up on top by the wood pile, and he had some custom made long box Merriam Yelper, I mean, he would crack on that thing and it would almost like hurt
your
my
ears. Yeah.
And he gets on that ridge and just, one series and one hammers right down at the bottom. And he looks at me and he goes, he's coming. And I'm like, what? I'm used to hunting, Easterns, and I'm used to hunting, those Rio hybrids, whatever you want to call them in South Dakota, whatever, they're those mixed match birds,
Right.
And I'm like, huh? And he goes, we need to go now. I'm like, okay. And so we get down there, make it to the next ridge. He wraps it off, and that bird was 150 yards closer already.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, he looks at me and he's like, go to that log pile right there. I'm like, all right. I get right there and I sit down. I have the sun in my face, which is not ideal.
Not at all.
And I literally sit down and I look, and I can see this Tom about 150 yards down the ravine, and he's looking at me. So I just like tucked my hat down like this just to keep the sun off my face. And I already had my mouth call in, and I yelped, gobbled, and then he goes back behind a ridge. I put my face mask up. He was in my lap in 2 minutes.
Yep.
10 yards.
Yep.
And I just got to the Black Hills and I just killed a Tom within like an hour of being there. And I'm like, I love Merriams.
They're fun, man. I remember same experience coming out, moving to Wyoming, and had never hunted Merriams before. Hunting, if you can get them on private ground where they don't get messed with, they're ignorant. I mean, and they are. It's same deal. Opening day, set up a strutter across from a giant roost. Probably had 600 birds roosted on it, and it's like a circus of gobbles and hens. And we I shot the first bird in. He came in quiet from behind us, and we didn't know he was there. And all of a sudden he's in the decoys and he's beating on this stuffer that we've got, this stuffer strutter.
Yep.
And these guys like, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him. He's going to destroy my decoy. And so I shot him, and he's flopping around, and we're 400, 500 yards from this big roost across a cattle pasture. And these gobblers can see this bird flopping around and a strutter standing over him. And like 4 birds pitch off this roost and fly 3/4 of the way to us, hit the ground, and just run into the deep. And it's like boom, 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 boom. We killed 4 birds or 5 birds and never got up.
Really?
Never got up. I mean, there's birds flapping around and other birds are running in, and we just ended up standing up and walking off, got our stuff and left. The birds are still coming. It was ignorant. I never seen anything like it. And it was, holy smokes. It was 2 birds. I want to say it was 2 bird limit that year. And we kind of spaced it out over the course of the next couple days and took turns and didn't get up early. We run and gun in the middle of the day kind of thing. And but I tell you what, you get those same birds on public land where they get hunted hard and they get smart and hurry.
Oh yeah.
And you can overcall them. They're really decoy shy, and everything out here is that country over there, that Ponderosa pine country, is real open. There's not a lot of undergrowth to hide in at all. So you're just sitting against a big tree in a wide open, and they spot you.
Yeah, they can pick you out in a hurry.
Yep. And they don't spot you as bad as Easterns do, but they spot you.
They're a freaking whole breed in themselves.
They're different, aren't they?
The first year that we hunted in Wisconsin, we hunted this, and I'm certain it was the same bird 3 mornings in a row, because he was always in the same spot.
Yep.
And we're like, we're gonna get this freaking thing, And after the second morning, so the first morning he pitched down, and there was a 4-wheeler trail, and we knew he went on that trail because we saw him. And I'm like, all right. So then it was, the second morning we set up on that side where the 4-wheeler trail is. Where does he go? Flies down in the hayfield. Like, all right. And I'm like, you're going to be that way, huh? So then, that second day we ended up killing 2 birds. We reaped 2 birds out in this pasture, this open pasture. And we had one more morning to go, and my buddy's like, what do you think? Should we give him a third go? He's still there. I'm like, we're going to slip in the morning. We're going to stand behind these trees. And when he sounds off, and I had my reaper with, I'm like, we're going to get as close as I possibly can to his roost. And when he flies down onto a ridge or wherever, I'm going after him with the reaper. Yeah. And he's like, all right. I'm thinking this is going to be like a 3-4-year-old bird that's been hunted before, just an old stubborn bird. Well, we get probably within 30 yards of his roost, and we're sitting behind this pine tree. I hear him fly down. He went into the hayfield. I grabbed the reaper and I went right up to the fence and I popped that up, and he was only probably 30 yards away. And he looked at that. He kind of puffed up a little bit, turned around, was going to walk away. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yep.
Well, I put the bead right on his head, and I putted a couple times. He stuck his head up, and I shot him. And I'm thinking, I got an old warrior bird here. Nope. 2.5-year-old, 2-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
Just little nubby spurs, like an 8-inch beard. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Those are as pure Eastern as what you can get is in Wisconsin.
Yeah. It was the same in Michigan. I hunted Iowa 2 years ago, took my wife, and I was like, private ground, birds that don't really get messed with much. I was like, this is going to be cake. I'll have lots. We'll make a great video out of this. Dude, 5 days to kill one gobbler. We killed a gobbler. I think the second night we spent 12 or 13 hours in a box blind watching a food plot with a decoy out in front of it. And had a gobbler walk in, look at the decoys, turn and walk the other way. Same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was my brother's farm, and he's like, yeah, it won't take you long. He's like, you guys will kill your birds first, second day, you'll be done. Nope. I mean, we got it done. My wife killed a monster bird on her birthday. It was really cool. Nice. It's a really cool YouTube video. but that bird spotted her coming into a strutter. We were hidden. She's sitting not in the open, outline completely broken up.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even move. She's sitting still because she got busted earlier in the week by bringing a gun to her shoulder, and a bird spotted her and it didn't finish. And this bird spots her sitting still in Sitka subalpine. And nope, you can see him. He's about 20 yards, maybe a little less than that. And he's full strut, and all of a sudden he puts his feathers down, shuffles his wings and turns. And I'm like, you hear me on camera go, you need to kill that bird now. And she just boom, smokes him, But it was like, what do you have to do? I mean, they would spot you getting into position from the ridge above, and you couldn't see them.
Right.
You just hear them, but all of a sudden they'd yak at you a couple times, and you'd go get in a position.
Then they're shut up.
Gone.
Yeah.
Dead quiet. It's like, yeah, they saw us.
No.
It's like, what?
It's the only explanation sometimes.
Right. Yeah, because it was one bird, man. He was hot, just thundering. And we snuck in, and I think we just probably should have set up, a couple hundred yards away instead of trying to get closer and just see if he'd have come, but you're always trying to cut distance and get as close as you can. And yeah, it was bad.
And it's weird, like in Minnesota, where I'm at, we have just pure Easterns right where I'm at.
Right.
But you go out to that South Dakota border, and even on the Minnesota side, this is no joke. This was like the third year I hunted out there. We get such a variation of subspecies on that Minnesota side over there. And I think, I can't remember if I still have that picture or not. It was just on an old, camera. It doesn't look very good.
Sure.
But there's 3 toms in this pasture strutting. And the one, if you were to look at him, you're like, well, that's a Miriam. He was just white tipped, everything, and it's like, what the heck? And then the next strutter was pure Eastern. The next strutter looked like a Rio.
That cream color.
Yeah. And we get such a weird variation of coloring, out there.
That's wild.
And yeah, I mean, last year, me and my wife, we shot a double on our pasture spot, and they were straight Easterns, just the chocolate brown,
right.
But the year before that, the 2 that we shot a double out there the year before too, and Rios, whatever you want to call them, it's just goofy,
That's wild.
And still to this day, I had reaped a bird out there. And it's still one of the biggest birds I've killed out there. But that bird didn't look like a Rio, but it would be like in between like a Rio and a Miriam, but he was big. He had a
lot. We see a lot of those out here in northeastern Wyoming.
Yep.
We're killing a true Miriam's that's white, like snow white and not very big.
Yeah.
Is pretty rare. It's getting to the point where they're almost non-existent. They're almost all hybrids with Rios. And some of them are pretty big, like 22, 23 pound birds. And it's like, wow, this is, I would still say the average of probably less than 20, high teens. But the bird one of the birds we got coming out on camera shortly the next couple of weeks here from last year's hunt, the second bird we killed was big.
Really?
It was a big bodied bird and all creamy.
No.
That cream color to them. You can tell they're part Rio, or who knows? I'm sure a biologist could explain it better, but I know they introduced Rios in there to help prop up populations years and years ago. And I think they're the more dominant bird. And yeah.
Because the things that I've read, if you want to shoot a pure Miriam, you're going to have to go to like Colorado and hunt them in the mountains, or New Mexico. Or no, well, New Mexico, that's like the Gould's turkey.
Yeah, Montana. And that's northeastern Wyoming. You get over here around us and you see turkeys, they're Miriams. they're Merriams, they're mountain birds. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, you go out and hunt turkeys and chase grizzlies at the same time.
I'm good.
Yeah, you start hen calling, all of a sudden it's like, did you hear that?
Yeah. That? You hear that stick break over there?
Yeah, turkeys don't break sticks. Oh man. Yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting spring. I'll be interested to see if that hunting pressure you talked about earlier carries over. I think it's going to. Yep. I think it's going to. I think you're going to see a lot of people in the woods where traditionally you might not have seen people otherwise. Right. You know, like we said, COVID changed everything, and people are working from home. They, you know, normally instead of having an office to go into, they work from home. Yeah, like and I don't know. You know, when you can work from home, that opens up a lot of possibilities, because you can go hunt and you can work a couple hours every day or work at night and when you're not hunting or do whatever, as long as you're getting your stuff done. But I don't know. I don't have that kind of job, so I can't really speak authoritatively.
But I've really noticed it this year with ice fishing in Minnesota.
Really? You're a big ice fisherman, dude. Some of your posts, you catch my wife is so jealous of the bluegills that you catch. It's unbelievable.
You know, we have a few select lakes that still produce like what we call the true bluegill strain, where when you get them in, you know, a spawning time, they're big. I have one mounted upstairs. It's a replica. It's one my wife caught, and it was 11 inches, and I never got the weight on it, but I mean, it's a hubcap, you know,
right.
The true saucers, you know, what they always called them back in the day.
Yep.
But you know, looking at how many people I have seen on the ice this year compared to other years is unbelievable. So a buddy of mine, he works for Clam Outdoors.
Sure.
They are pretty much sold out of every type of portable fish house that they make. It's ridiculous. And if you go on like Shields, Cabela's, Bass Pro, you know, anybody that carries ice fishing gear, everything is sold out.
My goodness. So it's not just guns and ammo. You can't get any sporting goods hardly.
No. That was that Monday? Yeah, Monday. No, it was last week. I had to run down to Shakopee. I had some custom decoys made for my dad for his birthday.
Oh, cool.
And on the way down there, I was like, well, I'm going to stop in at Mills Fleet Farm and just, you know, poke around and see what's on the shelves, you know, for ice fishing stuff. They normally have, it's like 3 aisles, you know, stocked full of ice fishing gear, rods, tackle, the whole bit.
Right.
I counted 9 ice rods on the shelf where there probably should be about 200. All the tackle, you know, all the popular tackle, completely cleaned out. There's nothing left. And I was just going to go there and maybe buy some, you know, some fishing line or, you know, just whatever, just some miscellaneous stuff. I think I came out of there with like 4 items. Like that was it.
Smokes.
And, you know, some of the lakes I've been fishing, this one, it's a fairly popular panfish lake, but you know, this time of year, you'll see maybe 20, 25 permanents out there at best.
Right.
There's probably 200 out there right now.
Holy smokes. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm super happy to see it because it means more money for conservation. It means more money for animals. I mean, it's all that stuff with the Pittman Robertson money. It's good. And I love seeing people out there because it's the future of our sport.
Right.
You know, whether it's hunting, fishing, just future of the outdoors.
Right.
But it's been for guys like us that have kind of gotten used to it being, you know, just the hardcore guys that are really out, you know, you got your openers, you know, and everybody's out doing it. And then stuff kind of peters out. Off. It's not like that. It hasn't been like that for at least the last year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, I think it'll weed. I think it'll self level. You know, but 2021 is going to be interesting. You know, definitely more competition, like you said. But dude, we've been at this for like an hour and 30 minutes. and I'm getting hungry. I don't know about you, but when let's do this again. After turkey season, we'll jump back on and catch up. And if you get out here and want to chase turkeys, ducks, geese, whatever, man, bring it on. I'd love to. Maybe next time you're out, we can actually share a blind instead of.
No kidding.
Yeah, instead of going this way and you're going this way, and we don't need to hook up. So, but Brennan, it was great talking to you, man. I appreciate you being on.